All righty, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, if we could have a moment of silence, please. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody, whether you're viewing or you're here present. It's always good to see you. We'll start with a roll call. Commissioner Cos?
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. All commissioners are present. Public comment. I think we got, yeah, Joe? Come on up, Joe. As you know, Joe, you've been here enough. 3 minutes is yours. Okay.
Morning, Commissioners. Thank you. Joe Herring Surveying, 315 North 5th Street. Just about the Willis rezoning agenda item today that's coming up, and I sent an email. Hopefully everybody had that and had a chance to read it, and I appreciate your time on that. And hopefully you'll consider those 4 points that I pointed out on that email when you discuss that case. So I won't go over those, but my main concern is, we have a comp plan that we just approved. A year and a half, it took almost $300,000. We bring a case up here that has staff support, 9-0 vote from the Planning Commission support, meeting the comp plan, and the items are getting discussed and met with opposition at this level. And when we think that we had everything that the Board of County Commissioners asked of us. So that's my concern. That's my only statement.
Okay.
And I appreciate you considering those points in that email when you hear that case.
Joe, one thing I was going to say is, and we visited on the phone, when the comp plan did come up, some of these subdivision issues, for some reason that didn't come up. I wonder how that happened.
Nobody discussed them, I guess. It just wasn't a consideration, in my opinion. It was, since we're talking about it, the consideration was you wanted more houses. We need more rooftops, lessen the tax burden on our county citizens. That's why the county comp plan came out the way it did, and that's what we're presenting. And yeah, there's going to be some little bumps in the roads and stuff that people didn't think of, but it meets the comp plan. If they need to be adjusted, like we said, the county comp plan will get visited every year. Parts of it. So.
Okay. Thank you, Joe, for coming.
Thank you.
Time. Okay. Administrative business.
One second. Mr. Chairman, we do have another public comment. I don't know that it's on an agenda item, but because they're one of the cities and there's no one else on public comment, I would ask if you could allow them to speak at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Leslie.
Thank you, Chairman Smith. Thank you, members of the Commission, for allowing us the opportunity to speak to you for a few minutes this morning. Unfortunately, I'm here to deliver some negative and disappointing news on behalf of the City of Basehor. Before I deliver that negative and disappointing news, I do want to take a moment to reflect on the fact that last week we were here in front of this Commission during your work session, and we could not have been more excited, more inspired by what we think we hear the tone and the vision of this Commission taking, which is a unified voice and a desire to see Leavenworth County and all of the cities within the county thrive. I am disappointed to share with you that as of today, effective immediately, the City of Basehor is discontinuing our relationship with Leavenworth County Development Corporation. I wanted to make sure that we told you in person. We thought this would not be a message best received via email. We wanted to make sure that the tone and the reasoning behind our decision was conveyed to you, and we thought it best come from the messenger than by someone on our behalf. When I joined the city of Basehor 2 years ago, I will tell you there were certain members of my governing body who were not enthusiastic at my decision to rejoin LCDC. They thought that their historical experience with them had not been positive, and I thought certainly that was something we could overcome, because I believe that we all need to be working towards that unified vision. On Friday, I was notified, not even by the executive director, that an existing business within the city of Basehor that we have actively worked with LCDC on, both retention and expansion, had made the decision to relocate somewhere else in this county. I will tell you, I would much rather see the business stay in the county, but what we are discontinuing our relationship for is because the relocation was facilitated by the very organization we fund. That is unacceptable. That is not okay. And we are beyond upset by this news. Since receiving that news, we have received no phone call from LCDC, and the information that we did receive, mostly an excuse, offered blame at the city. It casted some blame at the county commission, and that's not the sort of organization we intend to participate in. So that is what I have to share with you today. I thought it important that you hear it from us directly. We wish them the best in whatever they do, but it's certainly not working on behalf of the cities as a whole. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask you a question? Well, you said there were some comments made about Leavenworth County. What were those?
Essentially that 2 of the county commissioners had also met with this business about potentially relocating them to other parts of the county.
And that's what LCDC said in a public setting?
That's what they said in a written email communication.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
then essentially told me that I had already known about that, so, why should I be upset now, really, is the summary of it.
How many jobs does this entail?
Oh, well, I thank you for pointing that out. This particular business is set to grow, and to add insult to injury, we were told, the business will not be receiving local incentives for the relocation, but LCDC has worked with them to receive state incentives, and so they would need the city of Basehor to sign a non-piracy letter, and I will just let you know we will politely decline to do so. We don't know how many jobs because we haven't been part of the conversations with LCDC. They've left us out of those.
Okay.
Thank you for letting us know.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, let me just say, add one thing to that. When I ran for office and I did this, I've always had a look that we need to revisit that. I've told y'all folks in the past and shared it with the county commissioners that I think we're missing the boat overall. I'm not saying LCDC should go away, so please don't put something in writing that I'm not saying. I do think we got a problem, and I think we need to find some way to fix it. I totally believe, and this is just Mike speaking, that we should have someone on staff at the county courthouse that's working with this economic division. We're missing the boat. We're just flat missing it. I've done this too long in Lansing to tell you that things get done when you cooperate and you come together. And the bottom line is ROI, return on investment. If you're not getting a return on investment, then we need to look at a way to fix that and correct it. The other thing that you see the problems with is when you get in communication. If you don't talk, I'm not talking about emails or phone. When I talk to people, I like to talk to them one-on-one. Sometimes when the weather gets really cold and snow, you can. But those one-on-one talks. If we had someone up here, and I'm just brainstorming, if we had someone up here that was part of their job, do like that, some of these things probably wouldn't happen. And I think that's the way to spend money. Because right now, I know Basehor's not the only city that's frustrated. And I've heard it. I've dealt with it for a long time. So I'm not saying we should. I'm thinking this is something that we probably need to move up closer to the work session than we've asked that the other commissioners agree. And we need to sit down and have a serious conversation on which way we want to go with the future of this organization and this county. And that's my 2 cents. Doug, do you have anything?
No, I'd just soon have the work session today. I know we can't be prepared for it. I mean, we can be on the return on investment, but on the other, I think we can be ready for.
Well, I think we need to staff a little bit more time because there's going to be some history that we're going to have to put together, even though on some of them, 0 times 0 is 0. But I think that to give them a little opportunity to be prepared. But I do think, Mark, that we need to, in my opinion, that we need to be sitting down and having this conversation sooner than later.
No, Mr. Chairman, we've discussed having a work session on economic development. It was
And actually today, I was going to formally request a work session on economic
Okay,
development.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. So,
We'll get that scheduled.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments on that issue, folks?
Well, I just
Go ahead,
think
Mike.
that if we're spending money on economic development, we need to be certain that we're not setting ourselves up competing against ourselves. And I don't know all the specifics about this, but it's just like when you have government entities suing government entities.
Yeah.
I don't like that. When we had all the different entities on the fire district one,
Sure,
or in the
sure.
school district suing the state, and same thing. We have ourselves competing against ourselves, and we have you can imagine the amount of tax dollars that's wasting, and then the amount of bad feelings between each of us that should be working together in the same direction. And I certainly don't want anything that we're funding to the tune of $280,000,
Around that. Yep,
about in
approximately.
that neighborhood, and then we turn that around and use that against our own people. I think that's something we need to really watch, and I definitely think we should have a work session.
Well, something else too, just to speak on that real quick, and I don't want to get sideways on. You know, when Lansing and Leavenworth and other cities always competed, one of the things that we did when we had new business come to Lansing, if they were coming from Leavenworth, I always made contact. And I'm not saying Elsie didn't do it. I always made contact to let them know that, hey, these people, we're not courting them. They're coming this direction. Because when you have the communication open, you can at least have the dialogue to say. But we don't want any city or any county, folks, anybody to get surprised. And I don't know the whole thing on this. I'm hearing the one side of it right now. But this has been an ongoing problem for us. And not just at the county level, but the city's levels too. So I think, Jeff and Mike, what you're saying is a work session, the sooner the better on this, is my opinion.
And I just remember when I first came on the commission 18 months ago, I don't know how many months ago now,
Yeah.
but we had a work session with LCDC, and he said that within so many months, he had his slides up on, his PowerPoint, and he said within 12 months we should see this kind of development and this many jobs, but every 18 months we should see a major jobs, company or some kind of development come in. And I just haven't seen.
For 25 years, we've heard that.
I mean, that's what we were given as the information that should be happening, but I just think we're the stewards of the taxpayers' money, and in 4 years with this kind of spending, it's $1 million every 4 years that I hope is not going down a rat hole.
And I don't think that the idea is to of a major development or change in a business. It's moving one business from one location within the county to another. I don't think that counts as growth. I mean,
I agree.
And
that
I agree.
the board has made a significant investment in the industrial parks. I mean, we did what I think only thing we could do. We can't do anymore. Unless, like I said, we do have our own person on staff.
And the industrial parks are less than filled.
And I guess
We'll get a work session.
Yeah, the industrial parks are, when they get grown out or whatever, it'll be fine. It's just that's not the only ball game in town though, and that's what I'm afraid is happening here. I love it when Leavenworth or Tonga or whoever can get industrial parks and they're growing, but some cities don't have industrial parks, and some other, but we all have businesses.
Yeah. You don't want to ignore retail.
Yeah, exactly. Retail, commercial, I think we're losing.
We kind of like the sales tax as soon as they open the doors.
Well, everybody does. It keeps your property tax down. So I think that's where we're, in my opinion. But I think we'll probably said enough on it,
Yeah.
and we'll just head on down that way. That's okay.
I did have one question for Base.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Are you folks, you're going to stay in the Port Authority, is that correct?
They have a member.
We do have a voting member on the Port Authority. I will say that we have been very pleased with the Port Authority's efforts, especially after they have been reorganized from the actions from the County Commission. Chairman Cause is doing a fantastic job, I think, organizing that group and keeping them moving forward. We're excited at what we're hearing from the Port Authority, but our participation in LCDC is done.
So our decision, I think, I don't know, was it a year ago or maybe 6 months ago? We decided all of our resources for LCDC are routed through the Port Authority, and so they would have to apply for any funding from the county. They'd have to go through the Port Authority first. But so that's hopefully a level of accountability that they have not had in the past, because they technically are a private they're a private nonprofit.
Yeah. Port Authority's a quasi-government.
Yeah.
So anyway, we want to be on the same page with you on this too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have a real good representative for Mesa on the Port Authority.
I apologize that this has happened.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you listening to us. Like I said, it was not something that we wanted to deliver, but we thought you needed to hear it from us in person. So
It just gets worse if you don't bring it up, and we appreciate it. Thank you for coming
Thank you
in.
for taking the time to come up here.
Yeah, you too, Mayor. Okay. Mark?
I had a couple
David?
other items on administrative business.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, last Thursday, the Kansas Association of Counties sent out an action request and an analysis on House Bill 2142, which was a bill that purports to provide relief to local businesses negatively impacted by COVID. Unfortunately, the gist of the bill is that local businesses could be provided remission of part of their property taxes already paid by actions that would be directed to be taken by you. There was no provision in the bill for the state to recompense you for the property taxes which you would have to somehow fund to return to those businesses. And the Kansas Association of Counties analysis was that this was an unfunded mandate on counties, and particularly irksome because the state previously had access to COVID relief funds, could have funded this program, but chose not to. The bill basically shifts that burden onto you. Because of the time constraints, the committee hearing on the House Bill 2142 was conducted yesterday morning. In working with Mr. Lawfrey, a letter was prepared for Commissioner Smith as chairman of the board to review and sign. He reviewed it, signed it, and we provided it to the House Tax Committee as testimony. The letter referenced that it was from Mike Smith as chairman of the commission, but I would ask that the board consider ratifying Chairman Smith's action in sending the letter to the committee. In the event that House Bill 2142 proceeds any further, that letter would basically become a unified voice of opposition on behalf of this board. So I would ask that the board entertain a motion to ratify the letter previously sent to the House Tax Committee regarding House Bill 2142 as being an official position of the Board of County Commissioners.
I actually support the intent of House Bill 2142. I do not support the mandate part, but if there was funding added from the state or some modifications, one of the things that bothered me about the letter was it said, or any variant of the bill. I think that language is something I have a little bit of an issue with. If they would change the bill or modify the bill to where federal funding would be issued towards this, I am in favor of compensating businesses that were that had I consider it just like a taking of land in this in the Constitution. It says if you have a taking that has not been compensated that by the government, they have taken they've taken your property, and so while I understand the letter and I understand the Kansas Association of Counties position, I'm not sure that I exactly completely support our letter.
Well, I think, first of all, this is always difficult to get something out on such a timeline before I can talk to the county commissioners, because I can't talk to the county commissioners because of the open records thing. So I made Mark and Dave very aware I was very sensitive to that issue coming out. And the way I read the letter, and Mike, we may just have two takes on it, because I wanted to make sure it was in there that we're not against helping any of these businesses or helping anyone, but don't throw a state mandate on us and don't fund it. We've seen enough over there for years. Counties have seen it. Cities have said it. If you're gonna send something down this level, and it may not make it out of committee, I don't know, you're gonna send it down this level, then you help fund this. We're all about taking care of everything, but you can't rob from us or take from us. Maybe rob is not the right word. Take from us, and then all of a sudden we have to make it up anyway. So state, you got the big purse, the big wallet. You help us with this. And then we can help the people that are going to apply for it. That's the only thing I think we were trying to say. I never was saying, I never interpret the way you said it, but of course that's your call on that. My intent was to make sure that we want to get something in front of them before they had an idea to think, not even know what we were thinking.
I don't have the letter right in front of me. I guess the main part that I would like to see modified is that it says, or any variant of, where you wrote, or any variant of the bill. Because if they did amend or change that we could get state funding, then I certainly think that's something we should be open to.
Mark?
If I could. I think that this is just another example of the state spending local dollars without any consideration on what it does to the local budgets. And the state retained over half of the CARES Act funds.
Right.
Which would have been somewhere in the neighborhood of probably $700 million the state retained. And if they wanted a project like this, a program where the businesses that were impacted negatively could receive those funds, they had the wherewithal to do it, the money that was outside of their normal budget. They had a committee put in place to contemplate that specific action. And then all of a sudden in January, after all those programs are over, where they wouldn't, even our programs are over, they came up with a new plan to spend local money. I think that's our concern. It's not the intent of the bill. It's the application of the bill, forcing it down to us. At the same time, they're considering legislation that says, by the way, counties, you can't generate any more revenue than you already have.
Yeah.
So I just, again, they haven't thought about the application.
And this is an ongoing issue with the state with the mandates, and then having this it coming down to the local level, and they're trying to control the local decision making. And I agree that something should have and could be done, but it needs to be done by the state. And I agree, the federal dollars were there to do it. If the state legislature was that concerned about this issue, they could have dealt with this long before, when somebody crafted a bill to say, we want money, but we want or people want to have compensation and we want the counties to pay for it.
Yep.
And that's ridiculous. And I'm tired of it.
And if the state promises to reimburse us, don't trust that.
Right.
Because that's what they've done all along. They exempt property from taxation and say, don't worry, counties, we're going to go ahead and cover that for you. For the next 5 years, they didn't make one payment. And the local ad valorem tax relief. Hey, don't worry, counties.
That's a good example.
Don't worry, counties. We're going to help you with this. What we're doing. We're going to
You
send you
don't
that
collect
money.
these taxes, we're going to give you the money, but then we're going to keep it.
But we're going to keep. We're not going to follow our own laws.
No.
Yeah.
I have a question for David. Under this House Bill 2142, do they give discretion to the county commissioners on making this decision? Is it a discretionary decision on the part of the commissioners?
Commissioner Stephen, members of the commission, I don't know who drafted that bill, and I'm not going to criticize any authorship. However, that's somewhat nebulous. The language seems to indicate that upon application, the Board of County Commissioners would approve the rebate of the property taxes already paid. I believe it is a mandate.
There's no discretion.
I believe limited to none. And
And I don't trust them, period.
we conservatively calculated the potential fiscal impact of the county to be $2 million. It could be more. The issue is that these are tax dollars that have already been paid in and distributed by the county to other taxing entities. Now the county would be in the position of having to fund those rebates. And as Mark pointed out, at the same time we're facing additional state legislation that would in essence say you can't raise the revenue to do so. So, and Commissioner Stephen, the word "or variant" thereof may have been a bit broad on my part. I did draft the letter. However, it could perhaps be fine-tuned to say any unfunded mandate with respect to local business relief.
And in that case, I would support it.
Well, and if House Bill 2142 proceeds any further, that letter certainly can be sent. I think the reason I brought this forward was because of the time constraints to have any affirmative action taken by this board, it had to be done before this board could meet this morning. So with apologies for taking that precipitous action, I believe it was necessary given the potential impact of that, quite frankly, very unfortunately presented bill.
Great. So, go ahead, Doug.
Would you like a motion to authorize the chairman to sign a letter with changes of House Bill 2142 if it were to advance?
Or do we just wait to see where it goes?
Commissioners,
Do we need to do both first, just
in case we get in the same situation?
But do we first need to endorse
Yeah,
the chair's
you're right.
sending of the letter, and then
come
have a
back.
second one that
All right.
any subsequent communications regarding?
I think that's
I
correct.
don't. I'm just asking.
I would ask that the board consider ratifying Commissioner Smith's signature on that letter.
Right.
If any additional letter is presented, I would hope we would have time to circulate it to you prior to it being required to be submitted to any House or Senate committee.
And in that case, we would make that as modifications.
We could make any modification you chose. The problem we had was we were notified of this Thursday. The letter needed to be to the House Taxation Committee by Tuesday morning, and basically we did not have time to, I did not have time to present it to the full board and took the action of presenting it to Chairman Smith.
And so moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion on this? Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. All right.
And then do we want to have a discussion about if there's any need to?
If a bill advances, that we have a
Right.
letter prepared, then that we've all
Right.
approved.
Commissioners, we'll check to see what legislative action, if any, was taken by the House Taxation Committee yesterday morning and provide you information on that.
Okay.
So we can't preemptively pre-authorize the draft of the letters and for us to?
I
Start
prefer
circulating
we
it.
see, and then I'm, again, hopeful we would have enough time to circulate it to the board before it
Okay.
has to be presented to.
But we do know the changes that need to be made when it does come back around. Okay? Okay. Okay, anything? Mark?
I do have one other item under administrative business, and that is a policy clarification. And I think in your inboxes, you received a memo from Crystal in Planning and Zoning about a very unique parcel and an application of our, I guess, our cross-access easement policy. So we have a parcel of ground on the very northern edge of our county. The only access to it comes through Atchison. Obviously, Atchison does not have the same regulations that we do, so the property on the Atchison side has what would amount to a driveway. And then when that driveway hits our county line, it continues on to a house that's in a property that's fully in Leavenworth County. The folks there went through the process of getting necessary variance to have a private driveway serve their property, but have since come into an issue with, I think, their bank, actually. So as staff, we've looked at it. We believe if the cross-access easement was applied to this, it would address the issue that they have. But because it is so unique and it doesn't actually connect to a county-maintained road, we wanted to just get verification or clarification from the Board of County Commissioners that it would be okay to utilize the cross-access easement policy in this case. And Crystal's here; she could probably do a much better job of explaining it, but I hit the high notes.
Did this come up about a year ago? Was this Mr. Poles? Okay. It's, all right.
Yeah, and everything Mark says is pretty close. It's an old, I think it was an old dairy farm is originally how the driveway got put all the way to the back of the property. There was just one residence and one dairy farm at the time. And then I think maybe a son built a house in front of the property later through Atchison County side. So, yeah, the rules are different. What it boils down to, though, is a financing issue. You know, since the banks went to a no funding for agricultural land without using special banks for that purpose, we saw a slug of these, we call them mortgage splits, in like 2000, 1990. In that 10-year period, we started seeing all these deeds coming through registered deeds for 1, 5, 10-acre splits out of a bigger farm tract. And the only reason they did them was for bank financing, because a bank won't lend you money on ag land, most banks. So when you go to get a loan, you have to have a legal description for just the house and about 5 acres. And then you can get the financing from most banks. If you have 80 acres or 160 acres, most banks can't lend you money on the whole 80 or 160 acres. They have to split out just the house and 5 acres. That's all this really boils down to is our regulations have caught these people in a seam between our rules and what they're trying to get done.
Yeah.
So all they're really trying to do is finance it, but the bank rules won't let them borrow money on farm ground.
Gotcha.
So, and Crystal will probably explain what the answer is to that, I think.
Yeah, commissioners, yes, this boils down to a financing issue, and one of the reasons is, for what it's worth, that those mortgage splits are really not encouraged is because oftentimes they created landlocked parcels, they didn't meet county regulations, and then when, unfortunately, sometimes the bank had to, call in on that note, they would call our office and find out that it was a non-compliant parcel, and so now banks no longer even accept mortgage splits for the most part because they weren't being done appropriately according to regulations. Staff feels like the cross-access easement is a good policy to address this. As Mr. Lafferty stated, if this were located completely in Leavenworth County, I think this would be a no-brainer. We would say, yeah, plat it. It's a cross-access easement. There is still a cost associated with that. There's a process, and it will take time. However, this is a way that we can allow this and it meet our regulations. However, because the northern property that they're using to access is located in a separate county, staff just wanted to get clarification from the board that the board is okay with. Before I tell this property owner to go ahead and do it, I wanted to get clarification.
And I think there's only less than 10 properties in Leavenworth County that are like this unique situation where you have to go out into another county to get to the property.
Okay.
So we're not talking about, probably. I think most of them.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're not talking about a big problem anyway.
Any more discussion? What do you need from us?
Just a consensus?
Consensus?
Yeah, just consensus that the board
Is that
either
okay?
supports this decision or.
We have a policy. We just want to make sure we're interpreting the policy the way the board
I support it.
intended.
Everybody okay with it? Okay. Thank you for bringing it to our attention, Kristen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Crystal.
We'll take some more easy ones like that down the line, okay? Please?
Yeah.
We got another one, Tom.
Okay. All righty. Mark, do you have anything else?
That's it for administrative business.
Mr. Chairman, we've got all notified about the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and it's on Wednesday. So are we going to change our meeting date that week? Because we'll all be in the parade, I'm sure.
Okay.
Make it Tuesday?
It's a Wednesday. Oh, I mean, switch it to a Tuesday.
Want to make it a Tuesday?
Yeah.
Tuesday at the same time?
Everybody good?
Everybody okay with that? Do we need a motion on that, Mark?
I think that the county counselor had a better suggestion.
Okay, let's hear it.
Just make sure your meeting's done by 10 on Wednesday, and then we can,
I like that idea too.
That's a great idea,
We could guarantee it.
I do like that thought, though.
These are those ones that take
But our
longer.
chairman speaks so much.
I do get going, Mike, no doubt.
Some of us got
I
to
think-
get floats ready or something.
I think Tuesday would work for us.
Tuesday?
I don't see an issue.
Okay. Need a motion on that? Change the, Mark?
We can just, actually, we'll amend it when the time comes, so that when you approve the agenda
Okay.
for that week, it will set the date at
The
that
week
time.
before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just,
Okay.
in case I forgot until then.
Okay.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we got the consent agenda.
Does anything need to be taken off the consent agenda? I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? Mr. Cos?
Aye.
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 All righty. Not wanting to speak too much, I'll move right along. Thank you, Mike. Formal board action, we'll turn it over to you.
I was going to say
Oh, Bill.
meat cattle.
What do you say, Vicki?
Go ahead, pile on.
For the board's consideration today, Public Works has the approval of an agreement with the City of Lansing that solidifies the maintenance responsibilities for the roads within the City of Lansing and Leavenworth County. We have been working on this for some time now. It did go before the City Council on the 28th, and on the 4th of February, we did receive notification that they were in agreement with the proposed agreement, and that they felt that it could accurately demonstrate the current maintenance responsibilities. This agreement does not change any of the current maintenance responsibilities. Our intention is to establish paperwork that demonstrates what current maintenance is ongoing prior to any discussions regarding any alterations to the maintenance schedules. If approved, we would have, this would be the second or third approval of these agreements for maintenance with the cities within Leavenworth County. We would have the city of Leavenworth, the city of Basehor, and the city of Tonganoxie remain.
Any discussion?
On the trading or equipment and manpower and all that, what did I see? Assisting with employees and equipment. Is that going to be a lot in the future, or is this just? Are we going to swap equipment back and forth?
No, we're not swapping.
Okay,
Back.
I just want to make sure. I didn't know if you had a piece of equipment going to a city, you'd have to send an operator with it, or.
No, we're not going to be. My intention is not to have any swapping of equipment.
Okay, or employees, because I'd say our guys got plenty to do.
Yep.
They got more than they can handle.
Yeah, no, we're not trying to take on any additional maintenance responsibilities.
Okay.
I like that this cleans up some of the annexations that accidentally were annexed to the center line of the right-of-way. I think those were mistakes that were overlooked when all of them were originally done. Because they never should have done that. You need to take either the whole right-of-way or none of it.
I agree.
So I like that this cleans that up a lot. The other question I had was law enforcement. Are we going to enter into MOUs with like ticketing and working accidents with law enforcement that would coincide with this same practice on these particular right-of-ways?
Commissioner Culberson, members of the commission, I'd certainly have to defer to either the police chief of the city of Lansing or the sheriff, but law enforcement generally has concurrent jurisdiction over those types of roads.
Yeah.
And consequently, it really doesn't, if there's a traffic infraction, it really doesn't matter who issues it. Generally, my understanding, and I believe the practice is that the cities and the sheriff have worked out arrangements for those situations.
Okay.
This would not impact that.
Okay.
David's correct on that. We did that a while back. Good question, though, Joe.
So do you know if they coincide with, like, say, we're going to take 155th Street and the center line is actually the city limits between the county and the city. Do we know if that section of 155th, if this agreement was entered into by the Public Works, does law enforcement consider it the same way, or is going to address it the same way? Like if
Commissioner
they say the
Culbertson,
city's
I
going
can
to take
speak from personal experience. Law enforcement does cover 155th Street with respect to the speed limit.
You know what I'm saying? If the county shop's going to take care of this
And the
section,
city
or
will write it.
And I have observed both
There's not a
Leavenworth
problem.
Sheriff's Office and
Not even an issue.
enforcing those speed limits.
okay, I just want to, because it would make sense.
Even if there was something like that, if an officer stops somebody, something like that, they can request the sheriff's department to come and sign on the sheriff's department's ticket. So it really hasn't been an issue. I know exactly what you're saying, because DeSoto Road, we used to split, and we really weren't supposed to ride on one side and the other, but I think we got that worked out, Jeff. That's an excellent question.
Okay, I just want to make sure
Yeah,
if the city's maintaining it, then the city police are
yeah,
on the same page,
good question.
et cetera.
Anything else for Bill on this? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the agreement for maintenance of roads in the cities for Leavenworth County and the city of Lansing.
Second?
Motion second. Any more discussion? Okay, Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Passes. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
We got the rezone. Mark? Yeah, Crystal coming up. I know, Mark.
All right. Commissioners, I bring back before you a request to approve Resolution 2021-03. That is a rezoning request from RR5 to RR2.5. At the request of the Commission last week, this was tabled for a particular commissioner to obtain more information. Staff's recommendation remains the same, that this be approved. So I will answer any questions that you may have.
I did get some more information, and I do think we should discuss some of these things. I don't know if all of these should be discussed here, or if it should part of it be in a work session, but some of the things I discussed, and this is in benefit for people that might be watching, is that even if we move forward with this rezone, your subdivision out there, Kane Estates, is not going to see an explosion in housing because there's not road frontage for the other properties that would be available for additional construction. I understand, Crystal, perhaps one additional property would have the frontage. Is that correct?
I know there's one additional. There might be one or two others. However, as we talked about last week, primarily these lots have been split to have the minimum required road frontage, which is 300 feet for a 5-acre subdivision. And people very rarely build their houses right exactly on the property line, making it very difficult even if they had 400 feet, which is what would be required, which I don't believe any of them out there have unless they have double road frontage. Typically, you have a house right in the middle of a property, which is the case with almost every subdivision lot in Leavenworth County.
So that was what I thought people should know, is that you're not likely to see a big explosion in the Kane Estates of housing, even if this would move forward. The other things I have discovered, and we've talked about, is where we have a subdivision, and I don't remember this being discussed when we went through the process of the comprehensive plan, but you have a subdivision that came in with 5 acres, and then now we've approved the land use plan for the whole southern part of the county that's 2.5. Did we contemplate that existing subdivisions would, that we would override those original subdivision requirements with this 2.5 and allow lot splits in those existing subdivisions? And after researching that, I found that there's the small subdivisions at up to 8 houses, and then there's the larger subdivisions above 8 houses. So the question probably that we should discuss is, if we have a larger subdivision, like more than 8 houses, should we respect the acreage requirements that those subdivisions have of the 5 acres, as opposed to allowing the lot splits in those existing subdivisions? And I don't know how this didn't ever come up, but obviously, like Commissioner Cos said, the comprehensive plan is not the Bible, and it is something we need to work through. So those are two issues I found. Additionally, talking to another constituent, Mr. Reichman, talked about this particular subdivision has the drainage issues, and
It does have a water detention pond. doesn't it?
well, the question is requirement. Should we require where they have a drainage, where they have a detention area in a subdivision, and they are requesting lot splits? Should we make a requirement that a drainage study be performed before those lot splits occur? In this case, I don't think it would be an issue, but it would be an issue in some cases, and perhaps where there's a drainage or a detention area, perhaps we should just have a blanket rule that if you're going to do a lot split in a subdivision with a detention, that you do a drainage study before the lot split's approved. And so, I don't know if you did receive this after visiting with Mr. Herring. There's some really good suggestions about things we should talk about, at least. And those are the things I have found. And also, Mr. Herring maybe could address this. Some of these subdivision plats actually have restrictions on splitting. So they actually write in the plats that you can't split below 5 acres. And I don't know how common that is. Is that a fairly common thing? Yeah,
No,
go ahead.
Crystal, okay. Joe,
No.
It's not too common, but it's in either the regulations or their restrictions that they put on flat. Subdividing have that option.
Crystal, you want to add anything to that?
I still maintain
I'm sorry,
that
Vicki, go
the
ahead.
spirit of even when we were doing the comprehensive plan and when we were discussing the potential for allowing for smaller, 2.5, the 5 to 2.5, and I just personally think that it's kind of taking advantage of a decision that was unintended consequence of a decision that was made by the Board of County Commissioners, and that is when you have a subdivision. And I just feel very strongly that when a subdivision and people have made their homes, purchased, at that time, they knew and they felt confident that this is where they were purchasing and this was what was going to be within their subdivision right there. Don't care what was across the street and what the plans are for a property owner that decides they want to sell their property for a subdivision, or a developer that has already purchased property and had not done anything to put those places, those homes, and those individuals where they're living there. And I think it's just kind of and I think that we kind of tried to reassure people as we were going through the process of developing the plan that, like I said, it's not it's a guideline. It's something for us to use in order to plan for the future. It's something for us to use to maximize different areas of the county for development and keeping it closer into the cities and allowing for the rural type developments and things like that. I think those were the things that we were promising people along the way. And then suddenly it's like, ooh, loophole. Now I can, just say, well, I decided that I don't need to live in my, I don't care about the rest of the people who live around me in my subdivision. I can say, I can make a profit off of my 5 acres and divide it in half. And I don't think that was the spirit of what we were trying to do. Sorry, I just really don't believe that.
I agree, Vicki, but this particular lot, like I said, it fronts 246 and also the Conley Avenue. So
But I don't think
basically
that's
add
relevant.
one house to this whole subdivision. And to me, it looks like you could access 246 on the one and then Conley on the other.
And I understand that, Doug, but I don't think that was the spirit of the subdivision when it was put in there, when it was developed, and when people put their homes there. They built their homes there, they bought their property there, assuming that they had their 5 acres and that was going to be their community. They can't make assumptions what's going to happen across the street.
I agree with you, but I struggle with the fact that that's not in writing as a policy. So that's why I think we should put it in writing as a policy. We should make it a policy on we're going to respect subdivisions, or we're not going to respect subdivisions. We're going to respect subdivisions if they're large as opposed to small.
But it's
and right now, he's within his rights under the comprehensive plan. That's what I'm struggling with.
But not under the current. I mean, it's each time something like that happens, we've got to go through and approve these. Correct?
If it's rezoned, correct.
But it's per the comprehensive plan, right?
But the comprehensive plan is a guideline.
Right.
And I'm saying that this is just my opinion, is that when we make agreements with people, when even a developer or a surveyor or anybody else goes through and they make these plans, that I'm just not one that looks for loopholes to say, here's now I can get around what the spirit of this agreement was, and here's how I do it. That's just not, I don't think that was what we had anticipated, and maybe it's a flaw in the planning process in general, but then we find those along the way. We have discovered there's a loophole. Okay, fine. Do we allow it? Because once we allow that continue to allow those loopholes.
Okay.
Oh, well,
Vicki, we're going to have to address that somehow because everyone's going to say not in my backyard.
Well,
and I totally agree with what you're saying. I've struggled with this. I've had more calls on this than anything. I'm going through a comprehensive plan, and it's a working document like we did out in Lansing. I always agreed with the ones that were within a mile of the cities like that's where the growth is going to occur. I also understand, people, they own the land, they want to do what they want, but this one is just concerning to me about the way this is playing out, because we're going to get 1 million of these, I guarantee you. They're going to come before us. So that's just my 2 cents. I know Mike's been talking a lot. I'll give it back to him now so he can speak on this some more if he wants to.
To fix that would be when we discuss the comprehensive plan whenever we revisit it every year, would be to basically couldn't do a lot split in a subdivision. It had to be a replat, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it would be that if you did a lot split within a subdivision, that you would have to have a drainage study done if there was a detention pond in that subdivision.
So,
That would be-
if I could, Commissioners,
Okay.
the drainage thing I think is separate from this, and would be better discussed at another time, because we're getting too many moving things here. This is a rezone that's been requested. The arguments are out there for or against it, but at the time this subdivision was put in, those were the rules. You had to have 5 acres, and you had to have this much frontage. I think Mr. Herring's email points out that those rules have changed countywide. We're now allowing 2.5 acres in these areas where we didn't before. So these people are just trying to play by the current rules. The language that you're discussing is a policy change that we would have to make that would say current subdivisions, and you have to define a subdivision, have to stay the way they were originally platted and designed. I don't know if that's the intent, but I think that's what the discussion is. But right now, this one is just, will we allow the rezone on this particular application? I don't believe it impacts going forward any other application. It's just this one you're considering.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
But you're setting a precedent. I mean, if we don't set the policy right now, like make a decision if we're going to allow these lot splits in, and my suggestion is above 8 houses in a larger subdivision, that we place that rule in effect. If we don't do it now and instruct planning and zoning to create a rule to that effect, we're going to get an avalanche of these. And this is kind of the first impression case that this is coming up, but it's going to, if we don't make a policy, it's going to come up again and again and again. I do not see, since I have visited with these folks, I've talked to almost everybody that has made an email contact with me, and I have told them, and I thought it was that we had got it down that there was just a potential one other lot split. But you're saying there may be up to 3?
No, what I'm saying is I don't have it in front of me, so I am not publicly going to say that there is one lot right there.
Right.
Because I don't have that information in front of me. So
Well, what I shared with them was it was going to be a minimal number of,
yes, absolutely.
in this particular case, and I thought that number was one potential other one.
Well, looking at the plat, I don't see there's going to be a whole lot unless they extend the plat.
Yeah, I didn't.
Well, it looks like
Extend
there's
the
4
street.
lots that have dual frontage.
Yeah, the most you could get is 3 more houses in that subdivision.
What effects does that detention pond, that they have the 2 lots, they have the detention pond that they share, they would have frontage. Would that affect the frontage, the fact that the detention pond is there?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I may not fully understand your question, but I don't.
I just, as far as we're going to
The
subdivide.
detention pond there's to the
Yeah.
south.
Right, the detention pond is not
You certainly
on
couldn't
this
build
property
where the
that we're-
detention
that
pond
we're
is.
talking about. No, you cannot build within the detention pond.
Right. So I think the impact of us approving this particular one house is going to be very limited. But this case raises so many issues that if we don't address them, it's going to be problematic, I think. Especially you have, like Mark said, you have the issue of the detention pond and how that affects a subdivision, whether you allow lot splits. And then you have the issue of what effect does the current zoning in a subdivision have? Are we just going to let everybody in a subdivision do a lot split with or without a drainage study? Or was that the intent of the comprehensive plan? That even though we said
The road frontage requirement is going to keep you from having.
most of the time.
Most cases.
Yeah, you're not going to
The
see an
road frontage.
avalanche of these because of the road frontage. So,
But if you don't have a policy,
I'm just saying now, I mean, because of the comprehensive plan, now developers have an understanding of how they can develop the land that, or the property owners, that they might want to put a subdivision or have it, whatever they want to have done with it. I am just speaking on behalf of individuals who have purchased and invested in property with an understanding that even though it changed, it changed from 10 and then it became 5. But when that subdivision was put in, it was been 5. It wasn't 10 at the time that they put the subdivision in and then decided to divide it into half, correct? I mean,
It was 5 acre.
it was 5. And so I'm saying is that was the understanding of all of the parties involved. There was an understanding, a meeting of the minds, that this is our subdivision, this is what we're buying, this is what we're investing in. And it's a subdivision. It's not that I went out and I bought 10 acres or 5 acres or what else, someplace there, and then decided, okay, I'm going to sell off my land into 2.5 acres. And you could build your house on there if you have enough, frontage or whatever it happens to be. Whatever those agreements, I mean, that's an understanding of what you're trying to do and anybody that might be purchasing that property. They're understanding that this is what they're entering into this agreement. When we do this,
I understand what you're saying, Vicki. I just don't agree with you.
right, I know. We
Because
don't agree with it because it's
the-
rooftops for you. To me, it's
Because we live 15 minutes, 20 minutes from Kansas City. So a lot of people like to work in Kansas City and live out in the rural area. So as population grows, one thing we can do is sell residential rooftops. We're not getting a whole lot of commercial and industrial going on. So the only way to pay our bills, to pay the taxes.
But not at the expense of somebody that has, to me, I'm saying that has entered into an understanding. Now, if every property owner there got together and said, hey, let's all get together and we can put in some roads, or we can do whatever we want to do, and we want to develop this into a subdivision that has 2.5 acres instead of 5-acre lots within our community. But this is a subdivision that has been developed with that agreement in place.
But this very much, I think, came up in our comprehensive plan
Well, I don't think it
discussions.
did.
Because I remember talking about a lot of these subdivisions, and I brought up several of them where people buy 5 acres, but they only use 1 or 2 acres in the front by their house, and they let the back 3 acres grow up in the
But it's their
weeds and
property.
brush. And they'll either, if they're lucky enough to find a local farmer that'll hay it for them, that's what they do with the back 2 or 3 acres. They just they let it grow up. They don't need the whole 5 acres. They use 2 acres.
Well, they may not need it, but it's theirs to have, to
I
use for hay
understand.
or not, or to let it overgrow
Right.
and look like a jungle or not. It's their land that they purchased with an understanding of this is where they were going to have their little homestead, even if they live and want to work in Kansas City and have their little 5 acres there. That is what they bought in that subdivision. That's just my perspective.
If we could have them sign something and say it's okay that your taxes go up every year, then I wouldn't have a problem with that. I wouldn't have a problem leaving a 10-acre minimum, as long as they understand your taxes are going to go up if you keep going down this same path.
Or buy a vacant lot.
But now, like Mr. Herring pointed out, that you can put, when you develop a subdivision, you can put specifically,
Deed restriction.
this will not be ever subdivided.
You can put it in the plat restriction.
You can put it in there. In this case, they did not. So the point I'm making is those people might have moved into that location thinking 5 acres, but there was nothing ever put in writing. And as we know, anything involving land has to be in writing. So there was no promise to these folks that no piece of this would be ever subdivided.
Thank God for loopholes.
Well, it's not a loophole because it is the law.
It may be the law, but it was, okay.
Okay, what else we got? I think we're getting pretty clear on the issues.
Are you ready for a motion,
Yeah,
Mr.
go ahead.
Chairman?
Can I, before you make your motion, can I just make a comment? I would support this as long as we had a work session to go over these policies.
What month are we going to review the comp plan?
March.
Of 2022?
I had it slated for fall since we adopted it
Exactly.
in the fall.
So I think we should just get our list of things for when we review the comp plan.
Gives us time.
But we're going to be hit by this.
I don't think so. There's just, I don't know how many subdivisions you're going to have that people
There-
would have the frontage.
Yeah, the frontage pretty much takes care of it being an avalanche of issues.
And if it does, Mike, we'll just have to deal with it, but at
And
least it gives
if
us some
somebody
information.
built their home right next to somebody else's property, they're not going to care. whether-
Yeah.
Well, I just think there's too many issues with the drainage, retention ponds, what we're going to do with the requirements on the splitting of lots, and these are things that haven't been resolved under the current policies under the comprehensive plan. You've got a comprehensive plan, and then you've got policies that allow for these things. So,
Well, I'm pretty sure any water detention that's in a subdivision was not exactly designed to hold the amount of houses. I'm sure there's plenty of room for adding a few more.
well, but we would only know that if we required a drainage study.
Well, I mean, if they've cut it that close on their water calculations to make this particular drainage structure will only handle, say, 6 to 8 houses, and you're going to add one more house, I don't think that's going to break the water detention.
I'm not even saying that on this particular.
Or any of them, but most people build, like Crystal said, build in the middle of the lot, and then you got your laterals running here, or a detached garage or something somewhere else. I don't think you're going to see a lot of these.
I mean, this is a requirement for drainage calculations. This could be a good policy moving forward on major plats that have a detention area. lot splits would be required to submit calculations.
Well, I think these are all things, Mike, that we definitely going to sit on the planning commission and look forward. I think that's the way I'm hearing the commissioners, but we've got this one in front of us now, so we have to make a decision on this issue right now.
Planning Commission passed it.
Well, I would support it if we make these changes.
Immediately?
I think it needs to be
We can't
fairly.
make changes like that immediately.
We can have.
We'd have to have a public hearing.
It is a policy issue that we could have our planning and zoning department draft these rules.
We can't change the rules in the middle of something, though.
Right,
We're committed
you're
here.
requesting to amend the zoning and subdivision regulations, which Commissioner Smith is correct, would require a public hearing and a notification process. And Commission, I will do whatever I'm directed to do, as I always have done. I would like to point out that in 5 years, I have had 7 lot splits. In 5 years, 7. This is not something we deal with on a regular basis. It is very uncommon. But again, if the board directs me to write a policy, I will write a policy.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Resolution 2021-03 on a request to rural residential R5 to rural residential 2.5.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion on this one?
I just think in order to resolve some of these issues, and I would rather not vote this way because this is going to make it so he can't come back to us for a year. I would rather see that we move ahead with resolving these specific issues, and then if we're in the process of resolving those issues, then we can move ahead with. I'm not opposed to this particular lot split, but I'm not going to be willing to move ahead with it unless we address the issues.
This particular slot split doesn't have any of them issues.
But it raises all of those issues.
But it doesn't have a drainage issue. It has none of these issues.
If we don't have a policy on doing a drainage study, we don't know exactly what the impact is.
You think one house is going to?
I don't know. I'm not an engineer.
Well, then don't try to be one.
I'm just,
Okay, guys. Wait, okay. Go ahead, David.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, 2 points. The first is there is a valid protest petition in place, so it would require at least 4 affirmative votes to approve this. Secondly, Commissioner Stephen, I understand your concerns. I would point out, by the time a policy is drafted, considered by this board, submitted to the Planning Commission for their submission, for their review and study, all the public notices are provided, that year might go by. So the process of changing policies and to codify them into actual legislative rules of the county is a rather time-consuming process and would take many months. Just offer that.
I guess what I'd like to have is a commitment that we would move ahead, put this in a work session and move ahead with at least designing these policies.
But on this particular one, if you got a drainage study done, that's the only issue you have with this particular?
Yes.
Why?
I don't even think, I'm not saying that there's even, in this particular case, there's not going to be a explosion of houses, but we're leaving this open with the rules. I think the issue here is the rules that we have in place, and I think we're not addressing any of that. So if you would be willing to have a work session to address these things that Mr. Herring and some of the neighbors and everybody has brought up, I'd be more than happy to support this.
Well, I think we've already said that we want to eventually have a work session or something, get started direction in that way and what they say. I think what we got for us right now is something that we need to act on one way or the other, though, Mike. I don't have any problem down the line. I don't know if the commissioners do, but this is right now, they're playing by the rules. This is what's been said. You have to vote whatever you feel the right way to vote, but this is what's in front of us right now.
Well,
But
I would, if you amend this to allow for a work session to address these issues, I would be more than happy to vote yes.
Can we go ahead and vote?
We're going to have a work session when we talk about revisiting the planning, or the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, I think it's coming down the line. I don't know if we need to put that in front. Let's get this vote on the way.
All right?
Mr. Stephen?
No.
Aye.
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 Okay. This was done, and then...
And may I
Go ahead.
clarify? I just want to clarify, and that is, I only vote aye because of the recommendation of the planning and zoning and the staff, and I hope that we can address my concerns that I have brought, because I think they are very real, and I think they're legitimate, and I think that we need to make sure that we
Totally agree.
close these little loopholes that people can take advantage of. And I'm very sorry for the individuals who got caught up, and the people with the protests that have been caught up with it in this, because that was not the intention.
Do you guys, you and Commissioner Stephen, think that those issues that you're talking about would be addressed in the comp plan review
I hope so.
automatically?
That sounds like...
I most certainly hope
I just
so.
think they should be
Yeah, Mike.
before that. I think we should. I
Was
think
it-
we should have a work session and at least talk about this subdivision issue. I think it's really an issue.
Okay.
Because if
And
you have
think
a
that-
subdivision that's more than 8 houses, and the folks moved in thinking they had a 5-acre,
Well, we'll probably have the review in like 4 months, right?
Well, you do it in June, don't we?
We'll probably have the review in 4 months. What's this, February, March, April, May, June?
We can't do everything during the
July.
budget.
Yeah.
Budget might
Right.
be a little tough.
It'll be later this year.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking September, October.
6 months, so,
But
I mean, do you want to have one
the
before
thing is,
then?
the thing is, we're heading there. We're going to get it.
Yeah.
We're going to get it in front of us as soon as practical.
That's why it's so important to pull that off the shelf every year and revisit the comp plan.
Absolutely.
but I just think we should move faster than that.
Okay, Mike.
But I'm obviously in the minority.
And I hope
Well,
that
appreciate
the
your
Planning
comment.
and Zoning Board will begin to kind of take into consideration some of what I brought
Yeah.
up here as they deliberate some of the requests that are going to be coming to them.
Vicky,
When
I think it will.
that this is not in the spirit of what the comprehensive plan was intending. I just cannot believe that it is, that we would do what has happened here.
Well, it's definitely enough folks have raised, in my eyes, that we need to be talking about. I agree with you, Vicki. And Mike, I appreciate your comments too, guys. Okay, we'll get that going. Next one is Solid Waste Committee. Mark? Who's that? Chris?
Tammy.
So,
Tammy.
yeah.
I saw her back there. Come on up, Tammy.
Tammy with Solid Waste is here to present a couple of items today. Actually, she has her quarterly report and she has an action item.
Good morning.
Tammy.
Great job, Tammy. Thank you.
So the first thing is just to approve the Solid Waste Committee. It has to be sent to KDHE by March 12th.
I think that you have a copy of the current proposal. Obviously, some of the positions that are on there are at the discretion of the board. One of the members retired from this. One of the county members retired from the county this year. So there is a recommendation in there, but if one of the commissioners had somebody else in mind, certainly would entertain that. It is a county employee position, so one that typically fills that. So other than that, I think it's pretty much as it has been in the past.
Sorry.
And then Mike McDonald is retiring on March 17th. But they want to wait for the new Public Works Director to choose their replacement.
Sure.
Do you need a motion, or
Yeah.
Make a
Looks
motion.
good to me. I would move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion on
Always good to have some good KDHE reports.
Yes, it
it?
is.
And as I told her before the meeting, great job. I get compliments. Tell me, I get compliments on that all the time. We'll call the roll then. Commissioner Collins?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you, Tim. Okay. We need to go to solid waste quarterly report, or is that we already done that?
Yep, quarterly report.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Additional public comment?
So Tammy's here for her quarterly report, so she
Oh,
would do
that's
that.
where I was going.
Yep.
Same thing.
Yep, new hat.
Okay. Okay.
So, Tammy Saldivar, you're a director of your Leavenworth County Solid Waste. For my quarterly report, I did my 2020 year-end report, just so you could see how much tonnage we've taken in and how many customers we've increased, what our total cost of our cleanup has been. All of our KDHE permits are renewed and up to date. And then just a little side note of how much we've recycled.
Tammy, how's our tonnage this year as opposed to the previous year?
Well, we've only had this,
I mean, the 2020 compared to 2019.
it was down a little bit. We were up 2,700 customers, but the tonnage was down a little bit.
Just not a
Nothing
huge
substantial.
fall off.
No. And we still see new customers every week. It's just amazing.
I think one of the things we saw at the beginning of the COVID quarantines, or not quarantines, but whenever they did the stay at home, people were staying at the transfer station
Yes, they
to
were.
unload all the projects they were doing while they were on their stay at home.
And they did quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that's the numbers are up as far as number of people.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Glad to see people taking advantage of the tires, being able to get rid of the old tires.
Yeah.
Repeat customers.
Yeah.
That's because some people I don't even think realize that there is a solid waste, that it's there. I think there's people that don't even realize that that's an option.
Yeah.
And so that was an opportunity for a lot of people to say, oh, well.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's just amazing, They'll come in and, oh, this is our first time here. And
Right.
Yeah, I know. It's promoted, but you're absolutely right. Okay.
And this would be a good time to remind everybody they get one free dump, any resident in the county, including if they live in the cities. A lot of people didn't understand that.
Yeah.
Even if you live in a city, you pay county
Correct.
taxes.
Yep.
So you get one free dump any day you want that they're
Take
open.
advantage of it.
Once per calendar year.
Once
Right.
per
Once per
calendar
Per
year.
calendar year, you can haul a load to the transfer station. There are some limitations. You can't show up with a semi.
Yeah.
It's
Come
a
on.
No biggie.
I just think that
2-ton limit.
the tire drop-off is really
Yeah.
important
Yeah.
for people
Yeah.
to know that service is available
Yeah,
through
so
the
don't leave them
transfer
off.
station.
In a ditch.
Yeah.
Right.
for Public Works to
For
pick
public
up.
works to pick up.
And how many tires can they bring? There's a
So the second Tuesday of every month, they can bring up to 10 off-rim standard size,
off rims.
off-rim,
Okay.
for free. For their cleanup, if they're choosing to do it that day, they can bring up to 5, and they can be on-rim.
Okay.
Okay. It's good information. Anything else? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
So
Tim.
then there's just a list here of what we do, our contact information, because you're new, even though you know where we're at.
Yeah, I think I do.
What we take, C&D. A lot of people don't understand what C&D is, and it's just any type of construction material, carpet, tile, lumber, building material. MSW is just standard kitchen trash, clothes, furniture. We also take brush and leaves. household hazardous waste from residents. And we do have a business side. There's just an application that has to be filled out and approved, and then they can bring their business waste there for a fee. We sell mulch and compost. There's a lot of people that utilize that. We're currently out of compost again. We run out of mulch sometimes, but not as often. But you get 3 bucket loads for $10 if we load it.
Good deal.
Our backhoes that we're leasing are supposed to be here next Tuesday. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Good.
That they brought the buckets already, so they're at the manufacturer getting the guards put on, and the stomping features covering the teeth up on the back. That's about what's going on in our world. It's cold.
Any
You got a
questions?
heater in there, right?
I'm not used to being this cold. I know. Something else for them to complain about,
Mr.
right?
Behrman.
Any questions for Tammy?
So, do you have any big projects for the facility in the compound this year?
We would like to get an outbound scale. We are waiting on a work session.
Okay.
I think Aaron was just waiting for the go-ahead to start that work session.
Okay. Anything else?
We need to be doing something every year out there.
We do.
Keep the facility up and going.
Yeah.
Because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Unless you got a place for land.
Nope. Don't even go there.
Don't even want to go there, do we? Won't be on 2.5 acres.
Yeah.
But no, we're lucky to have a good facility like that in the
Yeah,
county.
we do. And they do a great job.
They do.
I've heard comments all the time about it.
Right.
Any other questions, George, for Tam? Okay. We good?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank your
you.
staff for everything they do out there.
Absolutely.
Like I said, like to see them good KDHE reports.
Yep.
You and me both.
I've been around when we had a few bad ones.
I know. I went to pull some records yesterday, and even with those heavy bloods on
All righty.
just be really careful.
We got any additional public
Have a good
comments?
day.
Thank you, Tammy. Any?
I think the only one at the end was the mayor, and they came.
Yeah, I think that was it too. That's what you told me.
That was it.
Nothing, Jeff? Okay. Commissioners, I'm sorry. I'm used to saying that. Do we have
You
anything?
can take what we have.
I just had a city council meeting tonight at Base.
How fun.
That'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going next Thursday. Jeff and I.
Hey, guys.
Lansing.
Lansing City
Yeah.
Council meeting, present the Eastern Gateway.
Yeah.
I got the drone video over to them, so they're going to play that while we're
Pretty impressive.
talking
I
to
had
them.
a chance to see it. That's pretty impressive.
And don't forget, Mike, whenever you need a backup for Lansing, since I've got that little teeny tiny corner, I'm always available to,
Oh, what? I'm sorry.
for the city council for Lansing. I said, well, you know, we kind of traditionally try to come and
Yeah, yeah.
give our,
They're doing so. We're going to go in person. Most of the time they still do the Zoom. They're still doing that. So most of the time I just do that. And of course I talk to them all the time. Just
yeah, no.
That's my.
I was just saying if there's, it's just kind of, it's been a tradition that if you can't make it,
Sure.
that since
Sure.
I said I've got that little tiny little
Mhm.
back there,
I see what you're getting at.
Right.
that I will come and
Good.
help out, and then I take turns with Commissioner Culberson and
Okay.
and anyone else. I mean, I'm
Excellent.
always
That's great.
willing to do that.
That's
but
great.
It's only fair.
Anything else, Vicki? Anything else, Joe? Mike?
Oh, I guess one thing was last week I testified for the tornado relief bill, and that was, I guess the House version is coming up on Wednesday the 17th. They're going to have a hearing, and I do not know the number for that yet, but I'll get that to you.
Very good, Mike.
And I've taken a lot of calls this past week on this cane estates.
Yeah. I don't think you're alone.
A lot.
Yeah.
And
Well, we've all
There is
been
a
getting
clinic.
emails about
For
the other one in
Yeah.
vaccinations.
Lansing area.
Yeah. I've had them dumped on me. You're absolutely right.
No, I just said for the very.
Any more public comment? comment for anybody? Okay,
No,
okay. Need a motion to adjourn? Or do we do that here?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. Mr. Cos?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.